Like, oh, you meet somebody, Prince Charming. So I did what we recommend girls do. I went to college. I went to Hampton University, got into a relationship. After college, we got engaged. And I remember, it's so funny. My mother, everybody was happy. My daddy said to me, he was like, you are not ready to be anybody's wife. My dad knew. He said, you are so ambitious that you're going to have to give up everything of who you really are to be this man's wife. And I remember being so mad at my dad because I was like, I would think you would be happy, right? But he knew me. So one thing I loved about my engagement is that me and my ex-fiance, we took it serious. And we were like, if we get married, it's me and you until Jesus. Yep. Like, no matter what, if we do this, we end this. And having that pact in the beginning caused us both to really take this as a serious thing. What we learned was we had a real love for each other, but we had different life plans. And somebody was going to have to give up their life plan in order for the family to work. Now, at this time, I'm young. I'm in my 20s. I'm starting off in radio. I'm a graduate from Hampton University, but my first radio job, I made $7 an hour. And
hey guys, welcome to Little Black Button 91. I think this is really a great conversation to dive into. I think with Kendra G, we've seen her have an amazing trajectory, especially in the dating online series that she has created as well. And I want to say this, first and foremost, I think her father has pinpointed something that I think she's probably going to struggle with in the dating realms. What is that? Compromise. Simple as that way, compromise. She's going to struggle in a compromise area. She's going to struggle in the area of also being so driven and so ambitious. Men struggle with this too, but they may seemingly have longer marriages. But the women that are in those marriages too suffer because when you have somebody that's so driven and so ambitious, they tend to not be compromising. And they tend to be, it's my plan and my way only. The difficulty she's going to have is that if she's going to make that work, where she's got a driven plan and a goal, she's going to have to meet somebody who's also willing to be either more accommodating and more compromising, or somebody who also has an ability to be able to compromise in a way that doesn't inflict their lives. So they're going to be more independent of each other. The trouble with that is that people have needs. And when both people usually are that driven where they're like, I'm not compromising, yeah, you're going to find it a struggle. There's going to be a power struggle in that particular relationship. So I think her father nailed something. But I saw something else that was quite different with Kendra G. This was an interview where he was asking her questions up until the 37th minute. Okay, up until the 37th minute, the conversation switches. So this is a 2-hour interview, but from 37 minutes onwards, the conversation doesn't come back into at least a 2-hour mark. That's an hour and a half, I think, of much. I haven't watched all of it, but from what I was seeing. And what I was paying attention to is how Kendra G usurps the position that she's actually in. And this is what's actually going to be the issue. And it reminded me of the scripture of Genesis 3, where it says, the woman will seek to control the man and the man will rule over thee. And I said, Kendra kind of highlights that scripture. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is because it's going to be very difficult for a lot of men, whether they have money or not, to want to work with that. Because when they feel like they're being controlled or usurped, they're not gonna able to work with that particular person, right? And especially if she has on the level that she's on, the men have their own plan and they have their own uncompromising ideals as well. And so it's gonna be two titans clashing. It's never really gonna work, right? But just watch this at 37th mark about what happens here.
Yes, and I said, you writing letters to everybody know this woman but you. You done sat here, you've been around this world, around all these sensational women. He ain't trying to be nobody's husband, child. But
I told her
that's my own theory.
I said she is not.
Now, from this mark onwards, it's not necessarily about her talking about Latirius. That's not my issue. My issue is actually that from this point onwards, she starts asking Latirius questions. Baby, it's your interview. It is your conversation we're having with you. Why have you switched it that way? And that made me think, I know as an interviewer myself, I've interviewed people who try to switch it onto you and try to then start asking you questions. And it's really an indication that the person's unwilling to surrender and unwilling to be able to play a submissive role, right? You are in a position where you're being interviewed and then you're switching it to the interviewer. You're becoming an interviewer. And it's actually about how you feel comfortable being in a place where you do not have as much power. Because when you're being asked questions, right, seemingly, and I'm going to say seemingly you don't have the power to be able to drive the conversation in a particular way because you're not the one asking the questions. You can still drive it because you're giving answers. But when you don't see it that way, and you see yourself as having to surrender all and compromise all, just like the relationship she described, her father was describing from her, you find it difficult to do that. And I think that's where she's going to have an issue, is that she struggles with surrendering. And I think she wants to do that, But you know what you want to do and what you actually do are two different things. And I think this interview is a great example of that particular position. Let me give you the opposite side of this. Men who aren't willing to take the lead and take the reins become apathetic, and women look at them and they look at them as they're pathetic, because when a man doesn't want to take the lead and actually drive things forward, women go, well, how am I going to be safe with this man? How am I going to be comfortable with this man who doesn't know how to lead, doesn't know how to take initiative, doesn't know how to drive things forward? They're going to be looking at that man like, there's something not attractive about him, not because he's not physically attractive, but his mental attitude is off, and it forces me to be in my masculine rather than being in my feminine, being able to relax and receive from this man. I'm having to drive and having to protect him. So what am I describing here? I'm describing an ability to be able to relax and surrender. Because I can play a little bit more. Even at this point in 45 minutes, because we're talking about
the finest man in the whole world is at his oasis. So I just feel like,
click away.
Yeah, it's almost, and I'm gonna get a lot of flack, but I do, without the intimacy, women, you got to start dating like men to a certain degree. Just go on a coffee date.
No, I say that. So you're a
No, there's something that I noticed about Kendra G. She's always ready to give an answer. She's always ready. And that, for me, going when we've talked about attachment styles a lot of times, is somebody who's usually very anxious, right? They are quick to want to jump in without really thinking about what they're about to jump into. So they're not taking their time. So sometimes when you're listening, you're not listening to actually hear, you're listening to respond. This whole conversation turned into, not an argument, it turned into a conversation that was back and forth, and kind of like Letitia was defending himself, whether rightly or wrongly doesn't make no difference. The reality of the situation was that she moved from a place of being the interviewed to being almost the host. And that, again, it shows that you're uncomfortable taking a back seat, which is what she described in her story with that man. It's like two people have to give up, one of us has to give up a life plan. But I don't think the issue is really giving up the life plan. The issue is a core root issue. You're unwilling to compromise and surrender. And so I think she struggles to be led by a lot of people. There are very few people that can actually probably lead her. And that makes it even harder for her to find the right kind of person. Oh, because she's finding people, by the way. Oh, no. Kendra G is not somebody who suffers with men. No. She can get them. In fact, she let us know at the 2-hour mark that she can, get them. Let me just play a little bit of the clip, and you'll see. She lets us know very clearly that she can find a man. That isn't her core issue. Let me play a little bit of this clip.
Living a full life, because I know the opposite, which is death. So the difference for me is that's not what I think about every day. What I think about is am I in a spiritual well-being moment? Because I could be married. I can be married. Would I be happy? I don't know. I don't think so, actually. I don't think I've met, and these are wealthy men. Because people say, oh, you can't marry the man you want. No, I can marry the man you want, because all y'all focus on is money, aesthetics. I could be married to that. I could have the man of your dreams, girlfriend.
I could have the man of your dreams.
Who is she talking to? Why is she beefing the women? There's a conversation between Latirius and her. Why is she beefing the women? The women are not on this conversation. They're not even in, or the men. There's no men on this conversation. It's simply between her and Latirius at this moment. But she's trying to prove something. I can have any man I want, but it's not just any man that I want. Which is going to be. We'll talk about this in part 2 of my breakdown. But this is something I've noticed also. Remember I told you about this with Dr. Bryant, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, where she breaks the 4-4 and starts talking to the audience. I can have any man you want. Like, why are you trying to prove that? I get it that on your platform sometimes people call you out. I hear it. But this is a conversation between you and the dear future wifey. And if you can understand this point, because their whole conversation was predicated upon her saying that Latirius is struggling to find a mate, and is he really serious? Then the question really then goes on to, are you really serious? If you have access to all these men too, then the very thing you laid against him is what you're laying against yourself. The truth of the matter is that you're also looking for a right type of person. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You are waiting for the right type of person. I'm just noticing that Kendra G sometimes will jump in and interject. She's very excitable, which is not a problem. It's the jumping in. Sometimes you just got to take a little bit more of that back seat to allow the drive of that man to be able to take that lead. Because whenever we're talking about polarity, sexual polarity, the men that she probably wants that are going to be able to be leaders, drivers, they're going to take control, right? When you're always jumping in, you are starting to control, and you don't realize that. For men specifically, how we deal with relationships, we don't want to be mothered, and we don't want to be controlled, okay? And we don't want unsolicited opinions. That's just the honest truth. when we ask for it, we want it. And before anyone jumps on me, the women want the same thing. When women come to men and tell us about their situation or what they're going through, they do not want our solution. They want us to listen. And so the same thing with men. Men don't want women that are going to give unsolicited advice. She gave it on this panel, on this conversation. Unsolicited advice. The conversation was about you, and you switched it to giving unsolicited advice for the next hour and a half. And that tells you that that's a takeover spirit, that control. And the reason being is because oftentimes there's a fear behind that aspect of, if I don't have control, I'm not safe. Now, whatever she saw, whatever she experienced, I don't know, but maybe that's what she has witnessed. Maybe because she moves, maybe she's more closer to her father. And men, sometimes when they teach their daughters, they teach them like boys. And unfortunately, what that does is that robs the women of being able to allow them to be in a true feminine and being able to just relax and receive. Rather, they go out to go and get and execute. Ambition is not the issue I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the energy that you exist in on a regular basis. So that can be also a reason why she's repelling the kind of men she actually wants. So she knows what kind of man she wants, but she also may be repelling them with a type of energy. There may be something that we need to look deeper into in order to heal that area. Or better yet, there may be nothing to heal. It may just be that it's not God's time as well, right? And that can also be an issue too. It can be God's timing that it's not right now. Focus on the career you have, focus on the goals you have, focus on the vision you have. But it's just something that I thought I could bring to attention. But let me know your thoughts down below. Maybe you agree, disagree. There's the conversation about women having it all. I believe people can. I believe men can have it all. But there's also a level of compromise you have to be able to bring within that having it all, both for men and for women. If you're a man and you're super ambitious and you've got goals and everything like that, you're going to have to surrender that a little bit. In fact, the Bible tells us this in 1 Corinthians 7. It says, a man that loves God but gets a wife won't be able to focus solely on God. You're going to have to compromise. Why? Because you've got a wife. And the same thing with women. If once you have a family, once you have a husband, you're going to have to focus not just on your goals, but also on your husband. And the moment you take your eyes off that and focus solely on your career, man or woman, you are going to leave your person standing alone. All right. I appreciate you guys. Stay locked, loaded. If this is something that you've also suffered with and you want some help with this, please reach out to me. My coaching is open as well. So I'd love to see you guys and be able to help as much as possible. You shouldn't have to stand here alone and be in the dark. Okay. I appreciate you. Stay locked, loaded. We'll see you again soon. Much love.